She is a flawless, older, beautiful coworker. A woman I had always admired from afar, but now I was stirred to the core by a side of her I had never seen before. My name is Thomas Baker. I'm a 38-year-old bachelor, working as a corporate employee. I have been working at the electronics manufacturer I joined right out of college, and this year marks my 16th year. After 2 years at the company, I was offered a transfer to a regional branch, and for the past 15 years, I have been handling sales there. At the time, it was a small branch in terms of sales, but I managed to secure contracts with major clients, which greatly contributed to boosting the branch's sales performance. As a result, I was promoted to manager and returned to the head office. When I returned to the head office after receiving my transfer notice, I was greeted with a congratulatory mood by the general manager, who had become my immediate supervisor. "Thomas, congratulations on your promotion. It's quite an exceptional success story to become a manager at such a young age at the same time as you return to the head office. We look forward to your future contributions." "Thank you. If I could be blessed with such words of praise, it made all the hard work worthwhile." "Great. From now on, I will work even harder than ever." That's what I told myself. But 3 months later, I was unexpectedly consulted by the director. "We have decided to do a joint project between the sales department and the advertising department, and they want me to represent the sales department and work with the person in charge of the advertising department on the project. We're going to have a promotional event soon, and we like the sales department to participate as well, to present our products to the customers, along with selling them. By the way, we've already spoken to Jennifer, the manager of the advertising department." When the director said that, Jennifer, who was behind the director, stepped forward and said to me, "I look forward to working with you," bowing her head. Jennifer was the fastest rising section chief among the women at the headquarters, and was famous not only for her excellent work performance, but also for being one of the most beautiful women in the company. I too formally bowed my head to the director and Jennifer. "Of course, I'm happy to accept. I'm still inexperienced, but I'll do my best. I appreciate your understanding." Even as I bowed my head, my gaze was fixed on Jennifer. Oh, she hasn't changed a bit in 15 years. There was a reason why I was so conscious of her. Going back 16 years. I had just joined the company and was like a baby bird, not knowing what was right and what was left. The person appointed as my mentor was Jennifer, 7 years my senior. Jennifer, her family name Lewis due to her marriage at that time, was a full-fledged career woman and had always been called by her maiden name, Hill, in the company. Back then, she didn't hold any executive position, and because of her friendly nature, I used to call her by her first name. "Jennifer, how should I fill out this form?" No matter how trivial the matter, Jennifer, my senior, would explain it to me gently and carefully. "Here, I've compiled these notes. You can use them if you like. You catch on quick, so I think you'll remember it all in no time." With a smile, she handed me handwritten notes. With each of her considerate gestures, my heart would swell with warmth. Jennifer was 7 years older, but her skin and hair were youthful, making her look much younger than her actual age. With her dark brown glossy hair swaying and her gentle eyes sparkling with an angelic smile, she appeared radiant. Gradually, I began to see Jennifer not just as my boss but as a woman, and my admiration for her grew stronger. But as mentioned before, she was married at that time. No matter how much I liked her, there was no chance of us being together. Either way, there's no way a newbie like me can match up to such a beautiful and capable woman. I should keep these feelings to myself. That's what I tried to tell myself. But about 10 months after joining the company, a female co-worker named Sarah confessed her feelings to me. Caught off guard by her sudden confession, I apologized to Sarah, saying I couldn't reciprocate her feelings. She was indeed an attractive woman, but the one I truly liked was none other than Jennifer. As soon as she was rejected by me, Sarah had a look of disapproval on her face. "Can you tell me why you're rejecting me? I appreciate your feelings, but the thing is, I have someone I like. Don't tell me it's Jennifer, your mentor. You seem pretty close to her." Caught on the spot, I hastily denied it, but Sarah smirked and said, "So you like older women," before walking away. I watched her walk away with a sense of unease, and my worst fear came true. A few days later, the rumor that I had a crush on Jennifer spread like wildfire within the company. I vividly remember how Jennifer suddenly became distant after those rumors presumably reached her ears. Our friendly banter from before had been replaced with strictly business-like conversations, and it was quite evident from her behavior that she was avoiding eye contact with me as much as possible. It's not like I had any intentions of getting involved with Jennifer, a married woman. But the sudden rift that this rumor created between us made her seem so distant, and I couldn't help but feel sad about it. Around the same time, an opportunity arose where the upper management was looking for a staff member willing to be assigned to a regional office. Since I joined the company with the intent to gain sales experience, this was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. Besides, now that my relationship with Jennifer is on the rocks, I thought I should accept the transfer even more so that I can get away from the head office. And so, after working in the regional office for 15 years, I returned to the headquarters, only to end up working with Jennifer again, who was now a division head. Fortunately, the 15 years had effectively erased the rumor of me having a crush on her. The turnover of employees had been quite significant, and I assumed that any such rumors would naturally fade away after a decade and a half. To my surprise, I learned that Jennifer had divorced her husband 8 years ago. But of course, it wasn't my place to ask her the reason for her divorce. Even now, I still felt nervous facing her after all these years, and I was trying my best to act composed. "For the promotional event, do you have any ideas, Jennifer?" I asked during our first project representatives meeting. Jennifer showed me a few documents. "We have a brochure idea ready, and we plan to run a commercial as well, but we're pondering on something special for the event. Any thoughts?" The brochure concepts Jennifer showed me were all clear and attractively designed. Anyone would be compelled to pick them up. I admired Jennifer's work ethic and responded, "Well, we have plenty of home appliances, so I think we'll have a lot of families attending. How about organizing a superhero show to entertain the kids?" I then introduced some event companies I knew from my time working in our regional office to Jennifer. After explaining everything, Jennifer smiled in delight. "That sounds wonderful. It would indeed attract families to participate in the event. And Thomas, I'm impressed by your vast connections." I didn't expect such praise, which left me blushing. No matter how many years go by, Jennifer remains an idol to me. "Thank you so much. In the region where the population is smaller, various approaches are necessary for sales. It's an honor that you appreciated it, Jennifer." Though we initially had an awkward atmosphere, before I knew it, we were having a friendly and relaxed discussion. Later, when we presented our plan at a project meeting, the staff showed positive reactions. "If we keep this up, the project will surely go well." Jennifer and I, feeling a sense of accomplishment, held many more detailed discussions together. This was my first time being appointed as a project representative, so honestly, I was quite anxious. But thanks to Jennifer's excellent work, the project progressed smoothly, making me feel a sense of fulfillment I had never experienced before. I owe it all to Jennifer. But rather, she praised me. "Thomas, you've really changed since the old days. Thanks to you, our staff morale is boosted." "Not at all. I'm still new to being a manager." No, not only me, but other executives also have been saying that. It's no surprise that you overcame various trials at the regional office. The executives saw your achievements there and appointed you as manager. Please have confidence. Jennifer. I felt rewarded for my hard work when I heard her words. Indeed, as Jennifer said, my days in the regional office were full of hardships. But being recognized like this, it's more than I could ask for. Maybe I've finally become someone who can stand on equal footing with her, from when I was a fresh graduate who relied on her. I thanked her, feeling again that I loved her. But I can't repeat what happened 15 years ago. I don't want to bother her and ruin our current good relationship. If I love her, I should hide my feelings and remain a good business partner. Trying to maintain my rationality, I reassured myself of that, but then I was hit with an unexpected turn of events. A week before the internal project progress report, Jennifer fell ill with a cold and had to take a day off from work. Everyone was worried about her, including me, because she seldom takes a day off, but she messaged saying, "I'll be back to work the day after tomorrow. Sorry for the inconvenience." She also requested to review the materials for the project meeting if possible. Her apartment was conveniently located, and all the staff knew where it was since we had passed by it during our get-togethers. As I lived closest, I was tasked with handing over the documents at her doorstep after work. But given that Jennifer wasn't feeling well, I planned to just hand over the documents and some get-well gifts at her doorstep and then leave immediately. As I headed to her apartment with the materials, I heard a weak voice over the intercom saying, "Come on in, please." Worried, I opened the door to find Jennifer, usually so strong, sitting in the hallway, her face flushed and breathing raggedly. Confronted with this unprecedented sight of my long-admired figure, I ran over to her in a rush. "Jennifer, are you okay? I'm sorry. It seems the fever came back all of a sudden." Seeing that Jennifer seemed to be in worse shape than I'd thought, I offered her my shoulder and led her to the bedroom. The moment she laid down on the bed, Jennifer suddenly started to cry, her tears falling heavily. "What's the matter?" I asked, and she managed to get words out between her sobs. "I'm sorry, I'm just so ashamed. I'm 7 years older than you, Thomas, and I'm the lead on the project. But I got sick right before an important presentation and caused everyone so much trouble. I feel like I'm failing as a leader." Being a serious and perfectionist person, Jennifer must be feeling weak due to her cold, blaming herself more than necessary. Seeing her in this state, my chest tightened, and before I knew it, I was holding her shoulder with both hands. "It's not a problem at all, and Jennifer, please don't deny yourself like that. For me, you've been my idol for the past 15 years. Hey." The moment Jennifer heard my confession, she opened her eyes wide in surprise. The feelings I've been trying to suppress all this time spilled out at once. There was no stopping me now. "I've liked you ever since we first met, Jennifer. Of course, I'm fully aware that 15 years ago I caused you a lot of trouble because of that. I'm really sorry for what happened then, but I've learned so much just from working with you, and it's made me incredibly happy. So Jennifer, please feel free to rely on me more. I might still have a long way to go, but I believe I've become more dependable than I used to be. I'm confident that I won't make any stupid mistakes. All of our colleagues admire your personality and abilities too." After pouring out my heart, I suddenly felt embarrassed. Letting go of Jennifer's shoulder, I pointed to a plastic bag on the table. "I'm sorry for having this conversation while you're not feeling well. I bought you some refreshments, so please enjoy them if you like. Please take care of yourself." Wait. Just as I was about to leave, Jennifer suddenly grabbed my arm. I hadn't expected her to stop me, and I turned back to her in surprise, unable to hide my confusion. Then, with teary eyes, she stared at me and slowly opened her mouth. "I can't forget because I like you too, Thomas." Now it was my turn to be surprised. Jennifer liked me. The shock was so great that I froze on the spot. Despite this, Jennifer revealed her feelings to me. I discovered my husband's affair and divorced him 8 years ago, but in reality, I had suspected his betrayal much earlier. But without solid evidence, I just couldn't bring myself to finalize the divorce. When I met you, Thomas, I was stuck in such a deadlock," said Jennifer. Upon hearing her reason for divorce, I felt a profound sympathy for her. At the same time, I felt an unbearable anger rising within me towards her ex-husband who had betrayed her. But Jennifer, the department head herself, continued her story calmly. "Oh, how much I was saved by your straightforwardness when you treated me earnestly at that time. Before I knew it, I had developed more than professional feelings for you, Thomas. But when rumors circulated in the office that I was in love with you, Jennifer, seeing your troubled face, I thought for sure that you have started disliking me." Well, actually, I was happy about the rumor, but even if we were just a married couple in name, I kept telling myself that I, as a married woman, shouldn't deprive you, a young man, of your future. Besides, you're 7 years younger than me, so even if you said you liked me, I convinced myself that it was just admiration for your boss, confused with affection. When I met you again, seeing your greatly matured figure after an extraordinary promotion, I felt that I, who was past my prime, was far from being your match. That's not true at all. Hearing Jennifer's words, I again grabbed her shoulder. Age doesn't matter, and being incompatible is preposterous. I have always been unable to forget about her. Even after 15 years of separation, my feelings for you never faded. I want to be with you forever. Oh, Thomas, thank you, I'm really happy. I too was savoring my happiness at the miracle of having shared my feelings with Jennifer. I wanted to hug her tight right now. But for the time being, she needs to rest well. I hate to leave, but I must say goodbye now. Staying here could worsen your cold. Whether she understood my intention or not, Jennifer showed an embarrassed expression. That sounds good. Let's continue this after my cold is cured and the project is completed. As soon as I left her apartment, I couldn't help but squat on the spot. Jennifer is worried because she's 7 years older, but her blushing earlier was as lovely as a young girl. At the same time as being thrilled by her cuteness, I was also basking in the afterglow of the happiness of becoming mutual lovers with such a wonderful woman. 2 days later, Jennifer had recovered, and the presentation went smoothly. As a result, our project achieved a great success. After that, Jennifer and I officially started dating and began calling each other by a term of endearment outside of work. Thanks to the high evaluation our project team received from the upper management, Jennifer and I have been working together a few more times. You could say that we are building a good relationship, both privately and professionally. There is no one else but her with whom I want to spend the rest of my life. With that conviction, a year into our relationship, I formally proposed to Jennifer. But here, again, she expressed her anxiety about our age difference. "I'm so happy, but are you really okay with me being older?" "It's fine," I reassured her as I held her close, whispering gently in her ear. Even though we were apart for 15 years, we both thought about each other, and our feelings are now even stronger. It's clear that age has nothing to do with it. Thomas, Jennifer's eyes teared up at my words. Yes, I also want to spend the rest of my life with you. From now on, I'm determined to be by her side, doing my utmost to protect Jennifer's smile. My name is Ken Johnson. I'm a just 40-year-old office worker. I have been single since I was born. However, I've somehow managed to get my first girlfriend at 40. I must clarify, I'm not particularly unattractive, and it's not like I couldn't get a girlfriend, but rather, I just didn't have the time to spare. I lost my parents when I was a child and grew up in an orphanage. In the US, you have to leave the orphanage at 18, so I didn't go to college. I started working right after high school. Life hasn't been easy. I worked tirelessly every day, barely making enough money to support myself. There was absolutely no room in my life for a girlfriend. Eventually, I switched jobs and got employed at my current company. I've been working here for quite a while, but without a promotion. Not having a college degree inevitably puts me at a disadvantage compared to those who do. Well, it's just the way it is. Compared to the old days, I earn better now and have some peace of mind. But before I knew it, I was 40. The idea of getting a girlfriend had faded from my mind. But then, a turning point came for me. A big project in the company was a success, and one day, a party for celebration was held. As I was somewhat involved in the project, I attended the gathering, seated at a distant corner. My role was merely support, and the star of the show was the project leader, a woman named Megan Taylor, so being tucked away in a corner suited me just fine. Megan was from my batch, but she's beautiful and thoughtful, and has the trust of her subordinates. Moreover, she comes from an affluent family, who made their fortune by dealing in high-end furniture. Despite us being from the same batch, our backgrounds couldn't be more different. She is indeed what you might call privileged. In fact, it's widely rumored that she's likely to get promoted soon due to her position as a project leader. I have conversed with her a few times since we are from the same batch, and I also think that she is fit to be in a position of power. She's surrounded by her subordinates, creating a lively atmosphere at the gathering. I was planning to pass the time watching her and occasionally chatting with the workmates who come to switch seats. "Oh, there you are, Ken." Amidst the winding down party, Megan approached. Her face was flushed, probably from drinking, and she seemed quite upbeat. Well, she is the guest of honor, after all. I was just offering support. It feels presumptuous to be lumped with you, the star of the show. What are you talking about? It would have been tough without your support. I didn't talk to you since you don't like drawing attention, but you were a star too. Megan pouted her lips, and I simply shrugged. I didn't feel like I worked that hard. Then Megan took the seat next to me and held out her smartphone. "I don't have your number, Ken." "That's because I didn't it to you." "Hey, give me your number." I was taken aback. What on earth is she talking about? Does she really want to exchange contact information with a middle-aged, average guy like me? Despite us being at the same professional level, Megan is 5 years my junior. We talk casually because we are on the same level, but there's absolutely no benefit for her to exchange contacts with me. Hey, are you even listening? I am. But why would you want to exchange contact info with someone like me? Because I want to get in touch with you. No good. Megan is totally drunk. She's excessively clinging to me, pestering me, saying, "Come on, let's do it." Feeling the prickly stares of those around us, I could sense my body stiffening. This was dangerous. If I played my cards wrong, I could be attacked by one of the members of Megan's fan club. "Are you really sure about this?" "Yeah, I'm sure. Let's do it." "All right, fine." I agreed to exchange contact information, but at that moment, I figured it was just a spur-of-the-moment decision due to being drunk, and that she would probably forget by the next day. Megan, looking delighted, took my contact information and then distanced herself from me, just when I thought I could finally relax. Surprisingly, this was the beginning of texting with Megan. Initially, it was just a good morning and a good night message. But gradually, our conversations started revolving around our evening drinks and work frustrations, and they began to become longer. These text conversations eventually transitioned into phone calls, and we finally started meeting up to talk in person. Honestly, it was a lot of fun, and being by her side brought me happiness. Maybe we were good chemistry, but I think Megan and I had a good compatibility as individuals. Hey, Ken, you don't have a girlfriend, right? If I did, I wouldn't be here having dinner with you. Haha, that's true. I'm glad, though. One day, Megan and I were having dinner together. While an elegant lady like her would look more fitting in a high-end restaurant, she adjusts to my commoner status and joins me for meals at regular restaurants and bars. At first, I felt guilty, but she seemed not to mind at all. In fact, she said she was having fun visiting many unfamiliar eateries, so I stopped worrying about it. Glad you are single, huh? At this point, I guess I'm going to stay single forever. That's not true. After all, I want to marry you, Ken. At her sudden bombshell, I snorted the beer I was drinking right out of my nose. Coughing and choking, I looked at her, and she had a serious expression on her face. Don't you like me, Ken? I like you, but I'm just not good enough for you. Oh, I thought we've been vibing for the past few months. Was I mistaken? I didn't know what to say. I thought we had a good rapport too. Moreover, if I let this chance slip away, I'll likely remain single for the rest of my life. I admit, I did want a girlfriend at least once, and I was thinking along those lines. Again, I thought that even if we did date, we would probably break up soon. The worlds we grew up in were just too different. Dating can sometimes lead to disillusionment, and I wasn't expecting much. Even though I wasn't. Will you marry me? Before I knew it, a year later, I was presenting her with a ring and proposing. And that's how I finally found someone to promise to marry at the age of 41. There is an inevitable event before marriage. Yes, meeting the parents. Since I don't have parents, this event only occurs for me. Moreover, the other party is an ultra-wealthy family. Asking for their daughter's hand in marriage is bound to make my stomach churn a little. It's inevitable. It's okay. Mom and Dad will understand. Megan said this with a big smile, but my face was pale. Just think about it. Their daughter, their pride and joy, brings home a middle-aged high school graduate from an orphanage with no parents. What's more, I can't even remember my father's face. My dad died in an accident before I was born, and my mom died from an illness when I was about 4 years old. So essentially, I'm a lonely old man with no family. If I were in their shoes, I'd be flipping the table. There's no way they'll be pleased. But I want to be with Megan. Because Megan wants it so strongly. If my humility is worth anything, I'll be humble, and I went in with that kind of spirit. As I was worrying about how to handle it if things go bad, I headed to her family's house. Welcome, we're glad you could make it. When the front door opened, a lady who looked a lot like Megan greeted us. That's Megan's mom. If Megan ages, she'll probably look just like her mother. I didn't have the room to think about that. I stepped into their house, which looked like a mansion, feeling tense. Let me say this up front. The table didn't get flipped. Why not? Because there's no such thing as a table to flip. It's all shiny and looks like foreign furniture. I was overwhelmed by the fact that I had brought the young lady, who lived surrounded by such things, to a pub, and my stomach felt even sicker. Come on, dear, don't just sit there. Welcome him. I was led to what seemed to be a living room, and I sat down on a plush sofa. Across from me sat a stern-faced man. Yes, that's Megan's father. Dad, Mom, let me introduce you. This is Ken Johnson, the man I'm seeing. I'm Ken Johnson. As I lowered my head with a trembling voice, then raised it, I couldn't close my gaping mouth. For some reason, Megan's parents' eyes were wide open. Megan's mother, Susan, flustered, asks, Could you tell us your name again? Did I say something strange? I'm Ken Johnson. I know this is a strange question, but wasn't your mother's name Karen Johnson, and didn't she pass away from an illness? I became confused upon hearing this. I told Megan that I didn't have parents, but I never told her their names or that she had died from illnesses. I can't believe this. Susan, with tears in her eyes, stood up and passed me a photo frame that was placed near the window. There were two women in the picture. One was Susan, and the other one was, wait, Mom. Yes, the woman in the photo was my mother. I vaguely remembered her face, and there she was. Were you acquainted with my mother? Acquainted, she was a lifesaver. Susan said this as she dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief and started to tell her story. She had a severe illness in the past and was hospitalized at a major hospital. She might not live very long. When she received this diagnosis and was feeling down, she met my mom, who was also admitted in the same hospital. They were on the same floor and had met in the common room. Your mom had a heart condition, you see. She didn't have much time left. Because of that, we became close quickly. The two of them hit it off and often talked in the hospital room. That's where your mom found out about me, her son. I have my son in a care facility. I lied to him that I would come get him. You shouldn't lie. You should definitely go and get him. I can't. I know my own life expectancy. My mom knew that she didn't have much time left. That must be why she said this to Susan. I feel like I land without doing anything. I want to be a mother that my son can be proud of, even if it's a little. Oh, but he might forget my face. He's only 3. I wish I could see my son grow up. He's really cute, you know. Look. My mom was saying that while showing Susan a picture of me she brought into the hospital room. He's got a good face, and his nose is high, so he'll surely be handsome. He's my child, so he's the cutest in the world. I'm just a doting mom, huh? My mom always seemed to enjoy talking about me, and Susan was apparently envious seeing that. Children are wonderful. I'm jealous. I'm sick, so maybe marriage is impossible for me. Hey, Susan, I had a dream. A dream? Yeah, a dream which twin girls were born, and the mom was you, Susan. So you will be blessed with children. My mom said this and laughed. Susan also laughed and said, What are you saying? It's just a dream. No, it's a woman's intuition, and my intuition is accurate. These were apparently the last words Susan heard from my mom. She took a turn for the worse while she was sleeping. She passed away quietly. It was too sudden and I was sad, but I found a letter addressed to me in her hospital room. Susan got up, took out an old letter from the drawer, and handed it to me. My mom's name was written on the letter, and I started to read it. To Susan, you have a future. Please live on. That was all that was written in the letter. But in the envelope of the letter, there was a ring. This is my mom's ring. I don't know why your mom entrusted me with this ring, but I decided to return the ring to her precious son someday. Maybe it was because of that resolution that I was able to overcome my illness. Susan firmly gripped my hand that held the letter. Her eyes, staring straight at me, somehow overlapped with those of my mom. I am alive today thanks to your mother. I met this man, received blessings. Those blessings brought your mom's son to me. Your mom arranged it. I listened to her story in silence, because that was all I could do. Tears were streaming down my cheeks, and if I opened my mouth, only sobs would come out. I thought I was abandoned by my mom. But I was wrong. My mom couldn't come to get me, but instead, She sent someone important to me. Maybe the reason why Megan and I got along so well was because my mom connected us. I can't pretend to be grand about it like I accept you as my daughter's partner. After all, you're Susan's son. I'm sure you'll make my daughter happy. You think so too, right? The conversation was turned to Megan's father, who had not spoken a word until then. Her father crossed his arms and he was listening quietly, but now he looked at me straight. Your mother protected someone important to me. Can you protect my daughter? I wiped my tears. A grown man like me can't be seen crying. This is a pledge between men. Yes, I will definitely protect her and make her happy. I declared so in a loud voice. Then, a few years later, I was walking fast down the corridor of an obstetrics and gynecology hospital, holding back my desire to run. I was heading for the private room where my wife, Megan, stayed. Megan. As I approached the hospital room, there she was, Megan, sitting on the bed. I rushed straight to Megan and was about to hug her, but I held back. She had just finished giving birth. I couldn't be reckless. You've done really well. Thank you, Megan. Oh, come on. How can you cry before you've even met the children? Look, they're waiting for their dad. I walked towards the two baby beds at the end of Megan's gaze. There, adorable angels were sleeping. Holding the tiny hands of the children, I shed tears. Mom, I have properly received the baton you've passed. Interestingly, the children born between Megan and me were twin girls. How did you like it? Subscribe the channel and it encourages me to continue creating. I'll see you in the next video. My name is Robert Moore. I'm a 30-year-old working for a major food company. I've been working at the company for 8 years since I graduated from college. I work in the planning and sales department, but I'm just an average employee, not particularly outstanding, nor particularly lacking. Currently, I'm stationed at the company's headquarters, hoping to avoid a demotion and keep working as it is. I have a wife who I met during my college days, a classmate of mine. Her name is Grace. We got to know each other better because we were in the same economics seminar at the same university, and we got married right after graduating college. Grace didn't get a job after graduating because we got married, and she became a full-time housewife. We had expected to have a child right away after getting married, but there was no sign of it happening, even after several years. We both wanted a child quickly, but since we were still in our 20s, we hadn't seriously considered any fertility treatments. Grace has always been a good student, always more committed to her studies than me, and I secretly admired her for that. Unable to have a child after getting married, Grace seemed to have started studying for a professional certification. Perhaps she had time on her hands because she was a full-time housewife at home without children. And recently, Grace told me she had passed the Certified Public Tax Accountant exam. Robert, I've passed the CPDA exam. Well done, Grace. I'm proud of you. I congratulated Grace with a smile, but there was a possibility that my face may have been a bit tight. I'm just an ordinary white-collar worker without any position. Grace is a certified professional with a promising future. And with her planning to work as a CPDA, I began to worry about what would happen with our plans for a child. If Grace were to make good use of her qualification, earn more than me, excel socially, and have and raise a child, where would I stand? I felt anxious, thinking that I might not be needed anymore. As Grace was filled with enthusiasm after acquiring her certification, my feelings began to darken day by day. And our relationship with Grace became increasingly strained. Grace seemed not to understand why I was becoming distant. Robert, have you been feeling unwell recently? Grace often asked me with a puzzled look. But I couldn't bring myself to admit my feelings of inferiority to Grace, and I just resented my pathetic self. I began to come home late and spent more days drinking with my colleagues after work. Conversations with Grace at home became less frequent. I still loved Grace, but my petty male pride was undoubtedly straining our relationship. Grace seemed to be considering working as a CPDA since she had acquired the certification. And I broached the topic of divorce with Grace. Our conversations had ceased, and our relationship had become uncomfortable, so Grace agreed to the divorce quite easily. Perhaps Grace also felt guilty about not being able to have a child, or so I thought. The day before I divorced Grace, I went to my favorite diner alone and cried in secret. As I traced back our days together, remembering Grace, whom I first met in college, I wasn't sure if getting a divorce was the right thing. "Robert, let me do it for you." From our college days, Grace had always taken care of me with a cheerful smile. Whether it was taking notes for me at school or helping me with homework, it seems that I had always been dependent on Grace. But there was a part of me that couldn't face such a pitiful self. Grace probably didn't come to dislike me, but the flow of events was unstoppable. We put an end to our married life and each started our own lives. After the divorce, Grace and I stopped contacting each other. I, who had parted ways with Grace, was supposed to throw myself into my work with a fresh mindset. However, since no one was home when I returned, my passion for work seemed to have further waned. I felt like I had lost my reason to work hard, and I just kind of went on with my work day after day. It's not that I hated my job, but I didn't find it particularly rewarding, and naturally, my performance didn't improve. Then, I was transferred from the planning and sales department to the accounting department. I had no experience in accounting, and I didn't understand why I was suddenly transferred to the accounting department. But thinking that it's better than being demoted, I ended up working in the accounting department. Dealing with finances meant that it was a pretty nerve-wracking job. What's more, my boss in the accounting department was the president's son, a man named Jacob. Jacob was highly motivated and famously strict. Having graduated from a university abroad, and with plenty of experience in major companies, he also boasted qualifications as both a certified public accountant and a certified public tax accountant in a foreign country. With such a profile, the president's son was rumored to be the next president. It was reassuring for the company to have such talent, but unfortunately, he was quite harsh to other employees as well. "Robert, what is this document? Generally, you are too slow to complete paperwork and your analysis is too superficial." I'm sorry. I just transferred and it's been quite challenging." Don't make excuses every time. Excuses are cheap. Our company is set to grow rapidly and no one will listen to excuses. "I'm sorry. I'll be more careful in the future." If you have time to apologize, you should study more about accounting. How will you work in a company without understanding even basic accounting? "Yes, I'll study more about accounting." I was sweating bullets being chastised by Jacob. I seriously felt like I was in deep trouble. I realized that I didn't have time to complain about not understanding accounting. "All right, it's a matter of pride now. I'll master accounting through and through." I felt a fiery passion in my heart for the first time in a long while. Maybe I was influenced by Jacob's zeal, but his words seemed to guide me in understanding that I couldn't go on as I was. I went to a bookstore and bought books on accounting, but just reading the text didn't help me understand much. After doing some research, I felt that it might be best to attend an accounting school. I could make friends who are interested in accounting and exchange information. So, I quickly enrolled in a school that was relatively close to my home. Because of all the overtime Jacob had me doing during the week, I chose a school that offered weekend classes. All right, I'll become a professional accountant here. I'll surprise Jacob. I opened the door to the accounting school with determination. Already, the room was filled with lots of students. Seeing this scene made me reminisce about my student days, and my heart soared for the first time in a while. It made me nostalgically remember my youthful days. Looking back on my student days, my memories were filled with Grace. Come to think of it, Grace was always there by my side. Lost in my thoughts, I didn't notice that the class had started, and the school's tax consultant, the teacher, had come in. The moment I saw the teacher, I exclaimed in surprise. The tax consultant who was the teacher at this school was none other than Grace. Yes, Grace, my ex-wife. There was no mistake. She seems to have become younger and more lively. She must be finding fulfillment in her work as a tax consultant. Grace was passionately explaining accounting. Grace's explanation was very easy to understand, and even a beginner like me could grasp the structure and concept of accounting. The other students were also attentively listening to Grace's lesson, nodding their heads. As expected of Grace, she's doing a great job. I felt a sense of pride in Grace as if I were still her husband. Maybe she noticed my intense gaze, because Grace suddenly looked my way and our eyes met. Grace seemed surprised for a moment, but quickly regained her composure and concentrated on her lecture. After the lecture ended, I went outside the classroom. Then, Grace came running up to me to talk. "Robert, what on earth are you doing here?" Grace seemed genuinely surprised and stared at me with wide eyes. I asked her if she had time to talk at a nearby cafe. When Grace silently nodded, we decided to go to the cafe together. Doing this brings back memories of my college days with Grace. When we arrived at a cafe near the school, Grace began firing questions at me. "I was really surprised to see you in class, Robert. Why were you attending the lecture, and why haven't you contacted me until now? What on earth have you been doing?" After the divorce, Grace worked as a tax accountant, and she told me she also taught at a business school on weekends. I thought to myself that it was just like Grace, diligent and hard-working. She hadn't changed a bit since our student days. It seemed that Grace cared about me even after our divorce, but because I hadn't reached out at all, it was difficult for her to do so. I told her that I had been transferred to the accounting department at work, and that my new boss was a rather strict person who didn't compromise. Because of this, I had to study accounting hard, even on weekends, and that's why I started attending the business school. "I had no idea that you were teaching at this accounting school, Grace." When I said this with a laugh, Grace also laughed. "What a coincidence, but if that's the case, I can help you out." With her eyes sparkling, Grace told me that. From then on, whenever I went to the school on weekends, Grace gave me extra lessons. She answered all my questions, and thanks to the homework she came up with for me, I gradually gained a deep understanding of the subject. Whenever I had a problem with accounting at work, I would consult with Grace, and she would come up with several solutions for me. I started to digest her proposals and submit them to the company after analyzing them. I started spending hours debating with Grace every weekend. And before I knew it, Grace had once again become an indispensable person in my life. "Hey Grace, have you found someone else?" One day, I decided to voice the question that had been on my mind. I felt incredibly selfish asking Grace to get back together after I was the one who initiated the divorce, but I couldn't help but ask. Grace silently shook her head. I felt a profound sense of relief and couldn't help but laugh. "Why are you laughing? Do you think it's funny that I'm not popular?" Grace glared at me, seeming a little annoyed. No, it's not that. I'm just relieved that you're still single. I've been reminiscing about our student days and wondering if we could spend time together again." At that, Grace's face turned bright red. It seemed that my words had made her a little shy. She was back to the face of the wife I knew, rather than the serious instructor. Since then, Grace and I started living together again. When I came home from work, Grace would listen to any work-related troubles I had. By that time, Grace had become a reliable partner and an irreplaceable presence in my life. Change was certainly happening at the company. Jacob was devising a new management strategy to further expand the company. I fully supported Jacob from an accounting perspective. Of course, this included a lot of Grace's ideas, but that was a secret within the company. Then, the management strategy Jacob built succeeded, greatly increasing the company's sales. Soon, my remarkable performance started to be talked about within the company. Jacob, my passionate boss and rumored to be the next CEO, was impressed with my work and asked what happened. "I found a really good accounting school," I replied, blushing a little at Jacob's praise. "I knew you had it in you, Robert. You've been studying hard. I want you to continue working hard in this company as my right-hand man." I was truly happy to hear this from Jacob, the highly respected and enthusiastic boss. To my surprise, I was promoted to a higher position. At that time, I remarried Grace. Although it was a marriage to the same woman, it might not be correct to call it a remarriage, but well, that's beside the point. I've been promoted, but I'm going to resign from the company. Jacob was very surprised by my words and tried to stop me. But I wanted to be with Grace. So, I studied hard to become a tax accountant, and, in fact, I managed to get my certification. Thanks to Grace, I had come to find accounting interesting. Moreover, Grace, as it happens, was joyfully pregnant. Now, I'm going to open a CPA firm as the principal accountant along with Grace. The most important person that I once let go due to my foolish pride, Grace. The second chance that I've been given, I vowed not to waste it, and never to part from Grace again. My name is Tom Watson. I'm 26 years old. I'll be graduating from college this year. It's not like I failed any of my classes and had to repeat a year. I just ended up graduating later than others because I spent almost 3 years studying abroad in various countries. My parents were quite passionate about education. They didn't stop me when I decided to study abroad. It seems like from a young age, they never got mad at me for anything as long as it was in pursuit of satisfying my intellectual curiosity. The reason I turned out a bit different from others might be due to this skewed approach to education. From childhood, I was drilled with advanced education, and it was taken for granted that I would excel in my studies. I always felt my parents expected something more from me. Maybe I decided to study abroad unconsciously because I felt stifled by them. It seemed I had a higher language acquisition ability than others. If I stayed in a country for a week, I would start to understand the language somehow. The sign that I could start speaking was when I began to dream in that language. The moment my dreams were no longer in Japanese, I would start speaking the language of that country. In this way, I learned to speak more than 5 languages. I really wanted to study more at universities abroad, but a situation occurred where I couldn't. My father passed away suddenly. I managed to return home in time for his funeral. On the night when my father's funeral rites were properly completed, my mother and I had a little drink together. Apart from New Year's drink, this was probably the first time I'd seen my mother drink alcohol. With my graduation looming, my mother looked at me seriously and said, You are free to live your life as you wish." I was surprised by her unexpected words. I thought she agreed with my father's teaching to stand at the top of Japan as an elite. It seems my mother was considering my situation in her own way. Even though I went to study abroad of my own accord after high school, I was merely walking on the path my father had laid out for me. Suddenly, having the path in front of me removed and being told to do what I like, I became confused. As a result, I couldn't make a decision about finding a job, and now I've become a jobless. Every day, I think about the meaning of living as you like that my mother mentioned, but I don't understand it at all. I don't know what I want to do or what I want to be. And my mother just quietly watches over me. It seems like the world was patiently waiting for me to make a step forward with my own will. Then, one day, I found a sign. It was when I went to buy a sandwich at the convenience store in the neighborhood. There was a staff wanted sign on the glass next to the entrance. Apparently, the older lady who was always there during the day retired. I noticed she hadn't been around lately. I never experienced working part-time, idly watched the movements of the store clerks from the entrance. It looked somehow fun. Maybe a job where you say thank you to people could be a wonderful job. That's how I felt. My mother's words crossed my mind. It's okay to fail, give it a shot. With that in mind, I decided to walk into the convenience store. When I mentioned the staff wanted sign at the counter, the manager came out from the back. He looked to be about 50, with a gentle and calm demeanor. I've never worked part-time before. There was no use hiding it, so I told him the truth right from the start. The manager nodded with understanding. He seemed to think I was a shut-in with no job, always aimlessly wandering around during the day. "It's good that you've decided to work. I'd love for you to join us. Can you start from tomorrow?" he said with a smile. By the way, I haven't written a resume at this point. The manager told me it was fine to bring it on my first day of work. Things progressed so quickly that it felt kind of scary, but just like that, I became a part-time worker at the convenience store. There were 4 part-time workers including me at the convenience store. Most of the time, I was at the cash register with the housewife from the neighborhood who usually came during the day. I didn't know what to do at all. But thanks to the careful instruction from the manager and the other part-timers, I quickly adapted to the work at the convenience store. I wondered if it might have been different at other convenience stores. I am truly grateful to everyone at the convenience store. Among the part-time workers, the one working the graveyard shift was Emma Miller, who was 6 years younger than me. At the store, I was the lowest ranking, while she was above me. Since she only works at night, she is known as the night lady. There's also Mary, a high school student who comes to work after school or on her days off. She's unbelievably cheerful and positive. Her parents are against her working. I think it's good that she has a spirit of independence, but it might be difficult to say the same if you're a parent. Long day, huh? Entering with a helmet in hand was the night lady, Emma. I instinctively checked the time. It's still just 8 in the evening, too early for Emma's shift in this heavy snow. "What's going on? Isn't it too early?" Emma replied annoyingly. "Remember, I'm off today anyway." Seems like she was hinting at me to better grasp the shift schedule. Leaving a note that she had something to discuss with the manager, Emma quickly retreated to the back room. Remembering that I also had a matter regarding my shift to discuss, I left the cash register to Mary and headed to the back room. There were no customers at that time, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to be away for a bit. As expected, Emma and the manager were in the back room, discussing shift schedules. "Manager, I also have something to discuss about the shift. My father's first Memorial Day is coming up, and I'd like to take the day off." The manager, who seemed to be arranging the schedule for the holiday period, assured me by saying, "Sure, sure," and secured my leave. When Tom can't make it, I can cover, even during the day. Emma volunteered to work all of my shifts. She might seem blunt, but she does have a soft spot. I remember being a little scared when I first met her. With her short black hair and a thin silver necklace shimmering above her collarbone. Her beloved vehicle was a DX125. She was a veteran part-time worker at this convenience store. I bowed my head and thanked Emma. Just then, I heard a troubled voice from Mary at the front. Rushing to check, I found a few foreigners at the cash register. Mary was trying to communicate in English, but they seemed to be French speakers, not proficient in English nor Japanese. Both sides were stuck due to the language barrier. "Mary, let me take over," I said, replacing her. Turns out, they were French tourists who were not good with Japanese or English. I lived in France for a while, so I am rather proficient in French. The customers seemed relieved to find someone who could speak their language. After helping the French customers, I turned to the entrance of the back room and saw Mary looking dumbfounded. "Tom, you're amazing. Can you speak French?" Her admiring gaze made me feel a little embarrassed. Then came a barrage of questions. About how many languages I can speak, where I graduated from, and etc. "That's impressive. So you have study abroad experience. I dream of touring museums all over the world," she said, striking a determined pose. "I need to work on my foreign languages." The wonderful thing about her is her resilience. She turns failures into learning experiences. As I watched her smiling, I thought it was a great quality. The next day, Emma, who usually worked the late night shift, showed up a bit early. She beckoned me from the back room. "Tom, can you come here for a moment?" For a moment, I was worried I was about to be mugged, but that wasn't the case at all. "Hey Tom, would you mind teaching me a foreign language?" At this sudden request, I let out a surprised, "Huh." Emma began to plead earnestly, her hands folded in front of her. "I have a dream of going on an international tour, and I've been saving up for it. Communication is key when you're abroad, right? I didn't go to college and I never properly studied a foreign language." Emma says she's always struggled with studying. She mentioned that last night, after seeing me handle a French customer, she realized the importance of knowing a language. When you can speak the local language, you feel so much closer to the people there. "I want to be like you, Tom." How could I feel bad about that? As long as it's within my knowledge, I can teach you basic conversation. So I decided to accept Emma's request. This is how I became Emma's exclusive foreign language tutor. We managed our schedules, and I started teaching her foreign languages, one after another. "So, where are you planning to go first?" "I'm thinking of touring Europe." Saying so, Emma opened a website of a company that organizes international tours. She really wanted to buy a big motorcycle and travel on her own, but she lamented that it was financially challenging. The website showed videos of motorcycles speeding down winding roads nestled between mountains. It seemed exhilarating and rather enjoyable. Emma's eyes sparkled as she watched the video, and I found myself slightly envious. "Let's start with German and English, then." When I said that, Emma nodded solemnly. "It seems I'll be the superior one in the realm of foreign languages." The roles are reversed, and it somehow makes me feel proud. But then a serious problem cropped up as we began our study sessions. Emma is quite sharp and quick to understand. The problem was on my end. I was terrible at teaching. I had no idea how hard it was to convey something I understood to someone who didn't. I had an intuitive approach to learning languages, and I couldn't answer Emma's logical questions. Every time we studied, Emma would get frustrated and shout, "Explain it so I can understand." That's when our mediator, Mary, would step in. Tom is naturally gifted. It can be helped, but teaching someone something is also a great learning opportunity for yourself. Even when we were arguing and the atmosphere was tense, things would soften when Mary stepped in. She was truly a blessing. As we continued with our study sessions, I realized how out of sync I was with others. I had assumed that what I could do was something anyone could do. Maybe that's why I never made any friends. I realized how arrogant I had been, and I felt terrible, probably the worst I've ever felt. When I confessed my troubles to Emma, her reaction left me somewhat disappointed. "What, you're upset about that? Isn't that just a part of who you, Tom, are? It's not a big deal, really." She was so blunt that it made me feel stupid for being upset. Interestingly, no matter how much Emma and I argued, we would always be on good terms the next day. We seemed to get along in the strangest of ways. This was the first time I have never been so deeply involved with someone else, and I couldn't help but recognize that Emma was becoming increasingly important to me. Of course, I didn't have the courage to tell Emma about these feelings. The thought of being rejected was terrifying. One day, another incident occurred at the convenience store. That day, it was Mary and I who were on duty. The manager was busy working in the back of the store. I was getting advice from Mary about her future plans. The college her parents want her to attend, and the college Mary really wants to go to. These two just don't coincide, creating a tough situation, it seems. Mary wanted to persuade her parents, but it seems they hold the same elitist views about education as my father. Mary was upset with the ongoing argument with her parents, which is quite rare to her. I wanted to say something uplifting but was at a loss for words. The silence was broken by a couple who rushed in with great urgency. They made a beeline for the cash register, standing right in front of Mary. "Mom, Dad, why?" It turned out that the couple who had rushed in were none other than Mary's parents, who we were just talking about. Apparently, Mary lied to them about quitting her part-time job. "Mary, you said you quit your job. What's going on? You should be focusing on studying for your college entrance exams." Saying this, Mary's mother grabbed Mary's hand over the counter. She seemed intent on dragging her home. "Please, calm down. Can't you see that Mary is upset? Why don't you have a more constructive conversation about her future?" Upon hearing my words, Mary's mother gave me a fierce glare. "What do you know? You're working a part-time job at a convenience store at your age. Did you even go to college, or did you graduate from a third-rate college?" Her words were dismissive, which riled me up. But I didn't want to brag about my own education in such a situation. Doesn't Mary have a wonderful dream? Why do you oppose her trying to find the fastest route to achieving that dream? Mary's dream is to visit art museums around the world. Her ultimate dream is to study art history at university and become a museum curator. It's a truly wonderful dream. I passionately explained this to her parents. But Mary's mother snorted in disdain. "If Mary fails her college entrance exams, will you take responsibility? What if she majors in art and struggles in the future? Do you really think she has enough time to change her college preferences now?" Cornered by her words, I was momentarily at a loss for words. Looking at Mary, she was looking at me with pleading eyes. Seeing her look, I steeled myself. "Got it. No matter what college, I will get her accepted," I declared, and Mary's parents stared at me as if I were a strange creature. "Understood. We'll let you try, but you only get one shot. Allow Mary to apply to just one school of her choice. If that doesn't work out, you must follow our instructions." Mary's father, who had been silently listening to our exchange, spoke calmly. Perhaps he wasn't directly opposed to Mary's dream. "I promise," I answered, looking straight into Mary's dad's eyes. Mary's mom seemed to want to say something, but her husband gently urged her to leave. Having talked a big game, I ended up tutoring Mary from the next day. Between my part-time job and tutoring, plus helping Emma with her foreign languages, my days suddenly became busy. Is Mary's application going to be all right? I only graduated from high school, so I don't know much about the application process, but isn't changing your preferred school at this stage a lot of work? Emma, who had been reading a German book with a dictionary in hand, asked me with a hint of worry. "I think it'll be fine," I responded. Still, while the application process should be okay, I believe it's crucial to have her parents' cooperation to realize Mary's dream. "Well, you have to take responsibility and convince Mary's parents." She makes it sound easy, but I wonder if I can actually pull it off. You know, my dad was the same way, always telling me to study and become an elite. After he passed away, I had no idea what to do. "Embarrassing, huh?" I said, scratching my head. "Well, I kinda expected that. You do give off a pampered golden boy vibe." Emma chuckled. "What do you mean, pampered golden boy?" I felt a bit annoyed, as if I were being mocked. "It means you were cherished. It's a good thing." I wasn't sure if she was complimenting me or mocking me. Either way, I felt embarrassed. "You look cool when you're working hard." Her comment made me even more embarrassed, and I hid my face behind the magazine I was reading. Seeing my reaction, Emma chuckled again. As for Mary's exam results, they were a tremendous success. She was accepted into the art college of her choice. What's more, her grades were among the top and she was chosen as a scholarship student, which would cover half of her tuition. Mary's parents finally admitted defeat. They both apologized to me, and her mom thanked me while crying. That was probably the first time I revealed where I had gone to college. Everyone present was so surprised that it caught me off guard. Mary successfully took the first step towards her dream. Now, it's up to her how she paves her way. That's probably up to Mary, I guess. On the other hand, Emma got a big motorcycle. She mastered German, English, and French, and is getting ready for an international tour. Watching the two of them closely, I was taken aback. I'm the only one who's been pacing in the same place. Everyone else is moving forward, but I'm not making any progress. Suddenly, I felt small and insignificant. Every night, I lay in bed and ponder what I want to do most until I fall asleep. And yet, I never come to a conclusion. I'd rather solve math problems than this. Seeing my day-by-day depression, Mary approached me with a concerned look. I decided to consult Mary about my situation. I wondered what the ever-optimistic Mary would say. Nervously, I awaited her response. Why does it have to be about what you want to do, rather than who you want to be with? I think that's what they mean when they say revelation. It's not about what I want to do, but who I want to be with. Being with that person might be what I truly want. I felt like I'd arrived at an incredible answer. Good evening. As usual, Emma, the night lady, arrived for work. Seeing Emma, I was struck by a sudden realization. On impulse, I called out to her. Can I ride on the back of your bike? I want to be with you." Suddenly confessing, Mary let out a surprised squeal. Emma looked bewildered. Her eyes were wide with surprise. I'm not sure if you understood. This isn't an invitation for a road trip. I like you and I want to be with you." As Emma froze with a bewildered look on her face, I attempted to explain myself more clearly, but was stopped by Mary. She scolded me harshly later for lacking delicacy. Emma sighed lightly and gave a wry smile. "It's fine to be together, but work on being able to ride your own bike." That was Emma's response. The tips of her ears peeking out from her short hair were bright red. "I'll do my best," I promised, scratching my head. "Handle it with care." That's me, getting onto Emma's beloved bike. At the convenience store parking lot, she asked if I wanted to give it a go. Without thinking, I blurted out, "Really? Is it okay?" Straddling Emma's bike, I revved the engine. Experiencing its vibration for the first time, I was fascinated by its power. I'll enroll in driving school tomorrow. I was all fired up from riding a big bike for the first time. I couldn't wait to control a motorcycle all by myself. "Ah, see, you've found what you most want to do now." Mary, triumphant as if her theory had been proven right, was smiling. I had to admit, she was spot on. Change your perspective, and a new scenery comes into view. When you hit a wall, think of another way around. It's a simple thing, but I found it challenging. 2 years later, Mary began touring art museums around the world while studying art history in college. She said she was investing all the money she saved from her part-time job into her future. As for me, I kept reliving that vibration. In the midst of landscapes I'd never seen before, all I could hear was the sound of my motorcycle's engine and the noise of the wind. Emma led the way. She skillfully used her slender body to maneuver her big bike. I struggled just to keep up with Emma as she showed off her fluid cornering. But I was happy to be able to see new scenery together. Our destination on this journey is Milan, Italy. When we arrive there, I plan to kneel down to her. I've decided on the words for my proposal. "I want to follow you for the rest of my life." Emma might be a bit taken aback. She may sigh and say, "Just ride freely," with a smile. Or maybe she will blush, her ears turning bright red as she looks away, trying to hide her embarrassment. Just imagining gets my heart racing. Milan is still far away. The end of this journey will be the beginning of my life with Emma. I believe in that.